Hey there, it's Aaron. It is January 1st, 2016, and I'm going to be making a video today about Thin Lizzy and Phil Lynott. Now I'm recording this early so I can put it up on YouTube and edit it in time and whatnot for January 4th. Reason being, January 4th will mark 30 years since Phil Lynott passed away. Now, I've done a video like this before. 5 years ago when it was 25 years, I did something similar, except I was downstairs in the family computer room and I was a little rushed for time. I thought I would do it again because my collection has grown a little bit. I mean, CD-wise, not so much, but in terms of vinyl and other things, I thought I would show off more of my Thin Lizzy collection just for the sake of the 30th anniversary of Phil's passing. So yeah, Phil Lynott. Or Lynott. I've been saying Lynott for years. But technically it's Lynott because, you know, the Irish accent there. But I think either or is acceptable, but really it is Phil Lynott. So I'm going to start. So I've been saying it incorrectly all these years, so I'm going to start saying it correctly now. So, now, how does this guy here become a Thin Lizzy fan when all they're known over here for is The Boys Are Back in Town, Jailbreak, and the Jailbreak album? Now, there are some people out there, like dedicated music fans, who do know that Thin Lizzy are much more than those three things. But typically wouldn't come from somebody like me unless a parent or a relative had passed it on to me, which wasn't the case for me. I pinpoint my obsession with classic rock music whenever I got into the Beatles, which was around the time that the Beatles 1 compilation came out. And then my family members were sort of, I don't know, getting a little bit tired of it. So they just said, well, why don't you try looking at other groups? I mean, there are other bands like them. In short, I got into The Who, The Stones, Pink Floyd, Black Sabbath, The Doors, I mean, all sorts of groups. And then around some time, like 2005, 2006, I would say more so, like that 8-year range. But I just wanted to find like the most obscure bands ever. So I had heard of Thin Lizzy a few times. I knew The Boys Are Back in Town. I was very familiar with the song. So I had a little bit of knowledge. I read some things about them, and what really stood out for me about them was that, wow, their lead singer's seems to be a black guy. Now, then in 2006, I was very bad at, trying to make decisions. Still am. I'm very bad at trying to make decisions. So I devised a system, or several systems, as to what album I should get next. I don't want to go into too much as to how I randomized the albums, but one of the albums I had on the list was Jailbreak by Thin Lizzy, and I really wanted to listen to it. I just really had this interest in listening to it. So it was about the first half of 9th grade, so this is about 2006, and then going into 2007, that I just thought, I'm going to listen to Jailbreak. So from 2004 till 2014, I got $10 allowance from my grandparents ever since I got my first iPod. So regularly that would be, one album a month. Although some albums are cheaper than $10, but that's what it was like then. That's what it was. So, and I would just have to make this one decision, like what album am I going to get? I could have chosen not to get anything, but it was just the debate of deciding what to get. So I got Jailbreak, and right after that I just went ahead and got other albums within all of 9th grade up until the very end. So, yeah, I'm a big Lizzy fan. I think they are very, very underrated. at least here in the States. I know at least over in Europe, the UK, and especially Ireland, where Phil comes from, they're much more popular there. But over here, it's really sad that there really isn't a lot about Thin Lizzy. So now, keeping this in mind, when I get stuff from iTunes, I always put them on CDRs. I mean, it may take a while for me to get to burning them on a CDR, but that's what I do. My new system now is to have all my CDRs in one zipper case. Now, I may make an exception and choose to put the albums in a slim case with the album artwork. Thin Lizzy are one of those exceptions. Start off with the first album here, simply self-titled. Thin Lizzy, I think it came out in 1971. Pretty sure on that one. In 1971. And at first, Thin Lizzy were a three-piece group. Now, they did form as a four-piece group. It was Phil Lynott on bass and vocals, Eric Bell on guitar, Brian Downey on drums, and Eric Rickson on keyboards. Now, after a while, after releasing one single, Eric Rickson left the band. I can't remember exactly why. I don't think he was very happy being in the band. For the first three albums, they would be a three-piece band. So this is the first album, and it's good, but compared to everything else that would come after, yeah, this is sort of weak, but it is not a bad album at all. This is a very good album. Now, while this is a rock album, there are very Irish folky songs on here. I love Honesty Is No Excuse. That's my favorite song off of the album. Look What the Wind Just Blew In. The Remembering Part 1. Ray Gun's good. A lot of these songs are autobiographical, based on Phil's life and what he had seen up to that point. Not bad, but then again, there are other albums that are better than it, or I think that are better than it. So there's the first Thin Lizzy album there. Up next is their second album, Shades of a Blue Orphanage. Of the studio albums that Thin Lizzy have released, this is my least favorite. And it hurts me to say that because otherwise they really have a pretty spotless discography. Now, this isn't a bad album. I just think it's the weakest of the Thin Lizzy studio albums. If there's any reason why it's weaker than the other albums, I think it would have to do with the fact that they were rushed to make this. According to Eric Bell and Brian Downey, they were rushed to make it, like in 6 weeks or something like that, something insane. But there's some songs that could have been left off here, but then again, it's 9 songs, so. I like the rise and dear demise of the funky nomadic tribes. Buffalo Gal is good. Babyface is good. Call the Police. I also like Brought Down, and yeah, it's not a bad album, but again, I think it's the weakest in the discography. But it's, again, this isn't a bad album. It's pretty good. The last album made by the three-piece Thin Lizzy was Vagabonds of the Western World. This is a very good album. I think of those first three, this is the best. They really, I don't think they were trying to go for this Thin Lizzy sound that they become famous for, but you can hear some sort of transition. It's sort of the bridge between the first 2 albums and then everything that came after. I like Mama Nature Said. The Hero and the Madman's a great, deep track. I like The Rocker. The title track's great. Little Girl in Bloom's great. Love the bass playing I'm Gonna Creep Up on You. And then the bonus tracks, there's Whiskey in the Jar. Great album. Now, after this album, Eric Bell left. Whiskey in the Jar becoming a hit single had something to do with it. But either way, he was frustrated. He didn't want to be in the band anymore, so he left. They got Gary Moore to replace him for, I think, the leg of a tour, and then that was about it. He did some studio work with them, but that was it. And then around that time, Phil and Brian tried to put together a new Thin Lizzy where they would have two guitarists, two lead guitarists to be exact, which they weren't really the first to do. I think if you go online, research would show that the first band, or the earliest example of twin lead guitars on a recording would be Wishbone Ash. But I think Lizzy were the ones that made it famous because they used it so much in their music. Now, the lineup that they settled on was they got Brian Robertson, or Robbo, as he's nicknamed, first. He joined the band first, and then they got an American guitarist by the name of Scott Gorham. The first album with that classic lineup, what is considered now the classic lineup of Thin Lizzy, is Nightlife. They had some problems making this one. It's a good album, but there are some flaws in it. They had problems with the producer, Ron Nevison. If you look at his credits, great producer, but from what I read in a book about Phil, he was adding strings to songs that really didn't need them and stuff like that. And I mean, it was the beginning. It was their first try at using this new sound with the two lead guitarists. So, you know, you gotta let them off for that. So, favorite songs on here, She Knows is good. It's Only Money, it's a great track. Still in Love With You, the live version's better. Go Down's fun. Philomena, which is about Phil's mother. And Sha La La La. Yeah, it's not a bad album. Alright, the next album was Fighting, 1975. This one I think they produced by themselves, so there wasn't any hard times with any producers or whatnot. They had a different cover for the UK and the American version. I went with the American version here. The same tracking list though. In terms of favorite songs, Rosalie is great, which was a song originally by Bob Seger. They decided to cover it, do their own version of it, give their own take, which was faster than Bob Seger's. If you listen to Bob Seger's, his version is pretty slow, but then shortly after the song became a hit single from Live and Dangerous, Bob Seger started playing it at his shows. For Those Who Love to Live is pretty good. Suicide, Wild One is great. Fighting My Way Back. Silver Dollar's fun. Freedom Song I like. Ballad of a Hard Man is great. And I also like King's Vengeance. All the songs here are great, but mostly Rosalie, Suicide, Wild One, Fighting My Way Back. And then I guess Ballad of a Hard Man, yeah. Those would be the 5 I would choose, so yeah. Good album. And next up, 1976, Jailbreak. Their big album, and they're most popular here in the States. Now, in the 5 years since I made that other video, I now have it on vinyl. Alright, so yeah, Jailbreak. This is my favorite of theirs. Yeah. I keep going on about how underrated they are, but I think overall, this is my favorite Thin Lizzy album, and I think people would agree that this is their best studio album. And it's my favorite studio album by them. So, yeah, Jailbreak. Obviously, the self-titled track's great. Angel from the Coast, some nice lost gem, in my opinion. Warriors is good. The Boys Are Back in Town, obviously. Fight or Fall, Cowboy Song, and Emerald, which is much better live. All these songs are better live. Great album, and fun to own on vinyl. Yeah, Jailbreak.